We start off this episode with the group cloud watching and talking about the upcoming Woodstick Music Festival, a reference to the Woodstock Festival from 1969. When the group hears some ghostly wails coming from an open grave, they're going to investigate, and here we've got some interesting headstones standing around. We've got a pretty standard one saying RIP, but then we've also got some pretty odd ones saying RIR? RIF, and another one's inhabitant apparently got Benjamin Button because they were minus 18 years old when they died. While the group is chanting gaze upon death after sending Thompson to investigate the grave, Tambry doesn't immediately chant with them. Instead, we start to hear her when we also see her chant with the others. Which seems like a pretty obvious thing, of course, duh, she has to move her mouth while chanting, but I found it pretty interesting that they deliberately not made her start chanting with the others, instead making her join in a bit later. A tiny animation error that I also noticed while Thompson is walking towards the grave is that he's missing his watch. In said grave, they find Robbie sulking about the breakup with Wendy, and no one really seems concerned when they are walking away, except for Mabel and Wendy, with Wendy's expression looking more like pity, I would say. While Mabel tells Dipper that she can't be happy while Robbie is suffering and that it would throw off her happiness chart, there's a gravestone in the background with the cryptic words "Rest in PBA." So either they fumbled a bit while writing peace and switched the E for the B, or it's supposed to say PB and J, which doesn't make it any less weird. Back at the mystery shack, Mabel tells Wendy and Dipper that Robbie just needs a new girlfriend. And I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but the Unibear head that's now standing on the ground was originally hanging where the fish is hanging on the wall now. I went back and checked, and that change was visible from episode 13 onwards. Please correct me if that change was visible in an earlier episode, because it's definitely possible that I overlooked something. The goat has returned and is apparently called Gompers. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. To celebrate her work of creating Wompers, Mabel throws some confetti over them, which does look a bit odd, because first she holds her hand out, then there's a short delay, and suddenly the confetti just appears out of nowhere a bit further away from said hand. Before we continue with the main storyline, we get a short introduction into the subplot of this episode, where Zeus recommends Stan to turn his hate for the Woodstick Festival into a money-making opportunity. But now we get back to Mabel's matchmaking plans for Robbie, where she meets his overly cheerful funeral director parents. A, might I add, not all too unpredictable twist. So, after we witness the slightly questionable decor choices, Mabel moves up to Robbie's room, which pretty much looks like you'd expect it to. Though, beside all the other cringy teenage stuff on the door, this carved rose actually looks pretty cool. The inside of the room, though, looks pretty much like the door would suggest. There's a spider, a few edgy posters, and other fitting decor, a legally distinct console, looks pretty much like an Xbox with a GameCube controller, and then whatever kind of junk that might be, though I don't really want to find out what kind of micro-civilization lives in there now. The most distinct thing in this whole mess, though, is a fairly well-drawn picture of him and Wendy, which seems like a bit of a waste in such a blink it and you'll miss it moment. After Mabel gives a motivational speech, roasting fingerless gloves in the process, Robbie gets up and we can finally see the verse that he put on the wall. I'm just assuming it's a verse because there's little notes written next to it. It reads, "I only cry in the rain, so my tears can't be seen," which, all the cringy teenage jokes aside, definitely shows how sad he is about the breakup. And it does so subtly, without shoving it in your face, which is why I quite enjoy this little detail. There's some more writing visible under the clock that says, "Leave me alone, wait, don't," which is then crossed out, really underlining his indecisiveness about the whole situation. Away from Robbie's home and back to the mystery shack where Mabel is thinking about potential partners for him by putting different people in separate piles. She put McGucket and a beaver together into the future matches pile, which seems like a very odd choice, especially considering that she knows that he's currently regaining his memories and became at least a little less crazy. It feels like a slight insult to him. Two other things I also noticed are, first of all, that the figurine number is not consistent between shots. In the top-down shots it's 13, in the close-up shots it's just 7. And the second thing is that the paper clips vanish between shots. We are jumping to the other group at Thompson's house for a bit, who are trying to smuggle snacks into the festival by taping them to Thompson. And where Tambry is getting a message from her secret admirer, this of course being Mabel, telling her to meet up. With this message, we're moving back to Mabel's plan to hook up Robbie with Tambry, which doesn't go too well. As Mabel's plan is falling apart, Love God, who was introduced at the start of the episode, enters the diner. He is voiced by John DiMaggio, by the way, who also voiced Jake the dog from Adventure Time, for example. True to his name, he starts spreading love, which Mabel of course wants to know the secret to. That secret being that he's a cherub, which at least in the Bible is described as a servant of God. The more pop cultural depictions are those little winged babies who are often connected to love in some way. The more biblically accurate depiction, damn, that was hard to say, is this one, with wings and 4 faces, one of an ox, one of an eagle, one of a lion, and one of a human. This demonstration he gives Mabel left some questions for me around the whole love potion thing. Love God says to put the potion on your finger and flick it at the person that should fall in love. When he shows this, it works through the window, so does it mean it just passed through the glass, or is it just used to cast a spell or something? So would that mean that you just have to be close to the subject and see it for it to work, no matter what's in between? Frankly, I don't think there is an answer to this question, so we are just moving on to Mabel stealing the love potion and mixing it into Tambry's and Robbie's food to make them fall in love. Naturally, the cook doesn't care in the slightest that the food is getting roofied by some random girl, and Robbie and Tambry don't notice the pink glittery goop on their fries, because why would they? Now that Tambry is in love with Robbie, she doesn't want to stare at her phone for once, so the only reasonable thing to do is, apparently, to just leave it on the table and walk out. And if you thought that the whole potion thing wouldn't go well, just like Dipper predicted at the start of the episode, well, then you'd be damn right. Because when Mabel breaks the news to the group, this guy... I always forget the names of these two. Nate and Lee. Well, Nate gets angry because Robbie knew he liked Tambry, and Lee then gets angry because Nate told Robbie but not him. Then Wendy gets angry because Tambry is dating her ex, and then Thompson gets angry at Mabel for breaking up their gang. So all in all, basically just some average teen crash outs. Before Thompson leaves, he drops the info that he kept the group together by letting them pick on him for years. Just a few words of advice. If your friend group works like that, I highly suggest getting new friends. Now, an actually interesting detail is that this table and this box were not there before the ad break fade. The twin solution to this whole mess is undoing the potion effect with another potion. So they move to the festival, where we get another little cameo from the agents and 2 guys from several times, Craigie G and Greggy C. I've just noticed that there's another character reappearance here. On the far left side of the scene, there's Ivan from the Blind Eye episode. Before actually following the twins though, we're catching up with the incredibly important side plot with Sue stitching together a balloon. Jumping to the twins at the entrance of the festival, where security are letting people into the venue that we've already seen in the short overview shot at the beginning. The person with the glasses standing next to the agents together with a girl with a beanie. Then we have America guy standing all the way to the left of the overview shot. This girl with the giant glasses and the ponytail and this guy with the scarf are standing next to the t-shirt stall. And then we've got this woman standing in the foreground of the shot. Now the twins are sneaking in to steal the anti-love potion just to get caught by Love God. And in the shot where they're running away, we can see the little potion rope belt thingy again. And either that thing magically replenishes itself, or they forgot to not draw the anti-love potion because it's still on there. Hey ho, editing Niceless here. I just noticed something while watching the scene again. In these 2 scenes where they run away from Love God, you can clearly see the stage in the background and that they are running away from that stage as well. But when Mabel throws the potion to Dipper and they do this little transition shot, suddenly Dipper is running up the same stage they just ran away from. And it can't really be a different stage because when we see the whole festival, there's just one giant stage. And the stage they run away from has the same notes stuck to the side as the one that Dipper runs onto again. And I can't really think of a reason why they even did it this way, because the shot where Dipper runs onto the stage looks completely different to any other shots off said stage. So it's not really like they could have saved time or money by not redrawing the stage and just reusing an old one, because this looks completely different. So they most likely had to redraw it. Okay, the twins run to the stage, and frankly, the artist did the crowd kinda dirty. None of them have a nose, and most people there don't even have eyebrows at all, except for one person who has eyebrows as thick as an arm. The interesting thing is that literally 5 seconds later, suddenly there's a completely different crowd. Considering the background is nearly the same in both shots and doesn't need to be animated again, I assume the reason why they decided to make one crowd less detailed than the other one is that the first crowd, the less detailed one, is animated and the other crowd in the second shot is just background and not animated. It would, of course, take more time to animate more detail. After giving the mustache men a concussion and crowd-surfing away, they run by a stall where Sprott, yep, that's his name, is drinking and, after seeing Lovegood fly by, pouring out some hipster tea. My assumption is that it's supposed to be him thinking that there's drugs in the tea, making him hallucinate. Probably not the worst guess on his part, considering that he just saw a man with tiny wings fly by. A little tidbit I noticed in Mabel's running scene here is that they reused some of the stalls in the background. To get the potion from Mabel, Lovegood uses his special move, Visions of Heartbreak Past. Of course this works, because Mabel is for some reason still written to be unnecessarily gullible, even after everything that happened in the episodes before. I'll come back to that point in a bit. But first, naturally, Stan accidentally saves the day with his mishap of a balloon. Told you the side plot was important. Said balloon also goes from not having a gondola in one shot to having one in the next. These are the kinds of riveting details that you watch these videos for. After being flattened and probably nearly killed by a balloon, understandably, Lovegood gives up and just leaves them with a potion. Now that you saw how the side plot pans out and connects to the main plot, we can get back to the point I was making before about Mabel being unnecessarily naive. First of all, I do understand that Mabel as a character is written to have a big heart and be more open, which leads to her being a bit more gullible than other characters. The reason why I criticize this is twofold. First of all, even for a character who's written to be as naive as Mabel is, I don't think it's reasonable to assume that they would give up something that they have been trying to obtain to a pink, misty version of a past love interest that was obviously summoned by the person who they stole that object from, with that person even clearly shouting out what they are doing, like they're Naruto or Yu-Gi-Oh!, all while their sibling is standing on the sidelines shouting for them not to do so. And yes, you could argue that it's just the potion taking effect on her, but she doesn't have the same sparkly eye thingy going on that Robbie and Tambry had when they first ate the potion, and she also seems to instantly realize that she fumbled. So I don't think it's just a potion effect on her. She was also clearly hesitant, and that would probably not happen if she was under the effects of a potion. The second thing that bothered me about the setup and why I waited till the side plot played out is that both of these things just feel like they exist to give each other a reason to exist. Without Mabel acting as naively as she does here, there probably wouldn't have been a reason for the balloon to crash into Lovegood in the first place. And without a real reason to connect a side plot to the main plot, there wouldn't really have been a reason for the twins to lose that potion in the way that they did. And thankfully, even though the side plot doesn't unnecessarily take up much time in the episode, it also doesn't really add much to the episode except for this one scene. I think the scene would have felt a bit smoother if Mabel would have just been forced to give up the potion under the effects of the other potion. That way the side plot could just play out as it did before, even though it still doesn't add much to the episode, but at least Mabel wouldn't have felt as unnecessarily gullible and easy to manipulate as she does here. In the end, Mabel decides to not spray Robbie and Tambry though, after the former thanks her for bringing them together. And a small but important detail is that after Mabel closed Robbie's hoodie, to put his heart back together so to speak, it remained closed for the rest of the episode, probably as a nod to him not being heartbroken anymore. In the end, everyone is bonding over their shared passion of Thompson, a so-called friend, being bullied. What a wonderful note to end this adventure on. So I hope you enjoy this episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls. I know it's been a long time coming and I want to thank you for sticking around for so long. I'm trying to get back to a somewhat more regular schedule for these videos. And as you probably noticed, this is the first video that's been uploaded to my second channel because I decided to split up the gaming portion of what I do on YouTube and the Mysteries of Gravity Falls, or anything that is not gaming related portion. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next episode of Mysteries of Gravity Falls. Until then, see ya!